what's the volume that you expect from this Apex edition for the Corolla?
Yes, so the Apex volume is 6,000 units for this first year. The Apex edition will continue on for at least another 1 or 2 years as well, and the second year is also planned for 6,000 units.
All right, so it's sort of a limited edition in a way. Okay.
So how do you see the changing of the Latino market in terms of the hybrids and EV for your brand?
I'm glad that the TRD, the Camry, is doing really good. I had it last week and I had a lot of fun with it. And now having the Apex and knowing the vision of Mr. Aquillo, we expect a sporty version of most of the lineup for Toyota now on.
Obviously, yes, exactly how Akio has kind of come in and said no more boring cars in the Wakudoki. And I think we're always going to look at what makes sense for the customer for the car. But now that, I mean, we've obviously pushed the envelope pretty far with an Avalon TRD. I think the Camry TRD is great. And then the Corolla Apex is going to be a really fun car, especially with the summer tire and the manual transmission. So I think, I wouldn't say every vehicle, but I would think that product planning is looking at, and it's kind of shown that we're following Akio's vision, and our lineup is not going to be kind of the Toyota of 10 years ago, but we're going to have some fun cars to drive and kind of, as we've shown over the last 3 to 4 years in the introductions of the vehicles.
You said 230,000 hybrids vehicles were sold, last year. What percentage were non-Prius?
People come to me and ask me about car advice. What car should I buy? So I guess my question for the Toyota team, for anybody, is it's hard for me to advise to buy a sedan nowadays. We all know that, the market is moving to SUVs, and the SUVs are great. They almost drive like a sedan, almost, right? And they have another advantages. So if somebody wants to buy a sedan or is looking for a new car, how can I recommend a sedan, any sedan, the Camry, the Avalon, you name it?
There's a both a refinement. Obviously, a lot of the crossovers are getting near the refinement of a sedan in terms of ride and quietness, but there is something to be said about how good our sedans pull that off. In terms of a long distance cruising machine, few vehicles are better suited for that than Avalon. It's brilliant on long trips. I took a trip down to Austin last summer and it went by in a heartbeat. It was so comfortable. Camry's the same way, especially when you pair it with the hybrid system. It's so quiet. And when you have a vehicle that quiet, that brings out the audio system. And these are the things that I notice when I drive sedans, especially coming out of SUVs. It's like, boy, the refinement here is so good. They're simple to park. They're easy to maneuver. They're nimble. They tend, because just simply their center of gravity is lower, they have a more engaging driving dynamic just by the nature of the way they're built.
Yeah, and I would add on to that, just based on, obviously you can get CUVs and SUVs and trucks in all different sizes, and the fuel economy is catching up with sedans. But I would say there is obviously still a big market of people that don't feel like they need that size or don't want that size or want a traditional trunk, if you will, or the lower ride and the more feeling connected to the road. I think when you look at some of the engineering of the vehicles, especially Camry, I think is a great example. And Tom, building on your point, Avalon is a great example. Corolla with the XSE and XSE, or the SE and XSE, it has a really connected to the road feel with your driving dynamics. And I would say there's a lot of buyers that still want to feel that exciting driving performance that maybe a certain SUV can't give you. But it's a very valid question, Juan. I mean, and obviously the market is showing us that there's a large portion that don't want sedans.
You know, there's another thing that I have aunts, uncles, and even my parents who sometimes complain about getting in and out of even a regular SUV because it's tall and you know, their hips and their knees aren't as good as they used to be. And sedans, they never complain, so that's another factor.
I have the opposite problem, getting in and out of sedans because they're too low. It's hard, but no, I can see the point, and it's a valid point, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's undeniable that the market is moving to SUVs and products like the Highlander. If I look at my window, I'm looking at Highlander here because my neighbor has one, and it's a great vehicle, you know. That I guess it's more versatile. Yeah, you can take it anywhere, and you can put stuff in it, and et cetera, et cetera. But
Yeah.
yeah, from time to time, it's good to drive a sedan, a good performance sedan. It's true.
Yeah, and I'll also add in just entry level price. The cars,
That's true.
Price point's a big factor, and especially when you're looking at like the entry level with Corolla or some of its competitors, you can't get into an SUV for that price.
Since you're talking about the sedan, and so we'll see just like the Mirai, we will see sort of a crossover with that power plant.
Yeah, nothing to announce right now. I think we're excited to get this 2021 Mirai out to the market and excited to hear feedback. Obviously, an all new platform. It is nothing like it's the previous generation. And so I think we're excited to see how the market reacts to that, and then stay tuned. And
I just like to say that's a question in the chat box. It's been there for a while.
Oh, is there really?
You guys can see it from Joaquin. Yes.
So Ricardo, just to answer your question 2 questions ago, right around 30%. So Prius were 70,000 sales, or just under 70,000 of the 230.
Thank you.
And yes, Joaquin, if the Highlander is on the same K platform, offers all-wheel drive with the V6, why not Camry and Avalon? The weight with the fuel economy numbers you're trying to hit in Camry and Avalon. And then also when we launched it, we had a drive in February with the chief engineer. Tom, you back?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to be back. Yeah, the V6 is a much smaller part of our total mix. The 4 is much more popular. There was also weight and packaging considerations as well. So those were the driving factors, plus just simplicity of build. We wanted to get the most number of people into this all-wheel drive platform that made, you know, in terms of price point and packaging, it made the most sense to make it a 4-cylinder.
Yeah, and to build on what Tom said, it is the V6 take rate in Camry is about 5%. So 95% take either the 4-cylinder or the hybrid. And then we had a drive in February, and we did with Chief Engineer Mark DeYoung, who's Chief Engineer of Avalon, but he's also Chief Engineer of the Avalon all-wheel drive and Camry all-wheel drive package, since the all-wheel drive is just North America. And when he spoke to, he said in Mules, when they put the all-wheel drive system in, and specifically Avalon, because that only comes with the V6 now in the gas-only version, they put in Mules and they found that the power was actually plenty with the 4-cylinder, and they kind of compared and they loved the driving dynamics. Obviously the added weight of the all-wheel drive system, but with the lesser weighing 4-cylinder, they thought it just drove better, and they were really happy with the 4-cylinder. So that's why they chose that.
I understand that we might not be seeing the Yaris anymore in the USA market. And I'm just wondering why such a good vehicle, such a good entry vehicle, and so popular around the world. I mean, you have a whole rally program around the Yaris, and I'm just surprised on that news. It's just maybe the volume too slow, or why?
Yeah, so it's kind of a mix. Kyle, are you on? Do you want to take that, or would you like me to? So the Yaris that we offer in the US is obviously different than the Yaris that we offer globally. It's in partnership with Mazda. So one, it's obviously a slower declining segment, but also there was additional homologation needed to offer it for the next model year. And just going through those steps to offer it for the next model year didn't make sense based on volume.
I understand. Can you mention something about upcoming, EV market and how Toyota is going to approach it in the United States?
Knowing where we are selling the majority of our plug-in vehicles, you can imagine we'd start with those markets where there is greater demand for EV vehicles. So, and then proliferate it out to the rest of the country.
I know there was some interest brought up with the Yaris GR, and you obviously said Yaris GR is not coming to the US, but you started hinting that about maybe a Corolla GR would come in its place.
Yeah, in February, Bob Carter, our executive vice president of sales, did say, we'll have an answer for that. So I guess the best thing to do is keep following the hints, but stay tuned. There is a little bit of a hidden piece on Toyota.com that kind of hints at something to come. But
hey, actually going back to the top of the call and Armando's question about hybrids and the Hispanic market, I can kind of talk a little bit about that from the lens of the LA region, which essentially is from San Diego all the way up to San Luis Obispo. So actual Hispanic registrations for Toyota sales in the LA region is pretty significant. It's 45.1%. But of that 45.1%, only 8.4% of that are actually hybrid sales. And so for the Toyota LA region, it really is an imperative for them to educate the Hispanic market on the benefits of hybrid cars. So, I mean, that is something that, they're trying to do locally and we're trying to do. And really that's why, we rely on you guys to help tell those stories. So that's just a little insight there for you.
Another thing to keep in mind about the hybrids is also the maintenance costs are low as well. The engineering behind it is partially to minimize the amount of maintenance required long-term on those vehicles.
And I have to say that from the Prius side, I mean, the reliability has been, top notch. I mean, I still see Priuses, with 250,000 miles running with no problem. And the only issue maybe is perhaps they have changed the battery, but other than that, everything else has been without any really problem. So that's pretty commendable.
Latinos are a pretty faithful crowd regarding Toyota. What do you think is the key on that?
Regarding Corolla, as has been mentioned here a couple of times, number one, it's right size. Number two, hitting that budget it is key, and it's definitely efficient, right? And kind of lastly, it's packed full of entertainment, whether that's the audio system with CarPlay or Android Auto right now. Those are all key selling features.
Oh, sorry. And to build on that, I think, as Kyle mentioned, Corolla is a great entry-level car for a lot of people. And, as Zach mentioned, the QDR, a lot of people, once they graduate from Corolla, they buy a Toyota again. And I'll just use, I don't know if you guys know Brenda, who works with me in the LA region, but her first car was a Corolla, which she still has and has over 100,000 miles on it. And they also have a 4Runner too. Yes, she works at Toyota, but it just kind of goes to show you that Corolla's an entry-level car, and that brand loyalty and that reliability, I think, has really helped the brand in the Hispanic market.
Yeah, I think Corolla has the highest loyalty rate or brand loyalty rate at like 65%. Is that right, Kyle and Ann? I think last year was 60.
I believe it's like 67%, something like that.
67%, yeah.
Don't forget that Corolla and Camry are benefiting from the TNGA platform, that independent rear suspension. It goes back to my favorite point about sedans, is that fun to drive factor.
I just wanted to add that also we cannot forget that Toyota is very strong in the secondary market. As a used car, Toyota has a huge resale value. And I think it's that a lot of first-time buyers are buying these cars that had already 100,000 miles, and they take it to 200,000 miles. And then they feel like, hey, I have no problem. So when they're ready to move to a new car, they feel that confident. And in the last 30 years, I've seen so many people start with, just like my son. My son has a Yaris, and I never asked him to what car he wanted. He felt, hey, you've been around the Toyota. You always talk about how Toyota is good, and he just got one, and and he has never had a problem. And I think many we can relate to that. You know, a lot of people that first car being a Toyota, used Toyota that's been so reliable, it opens the eyes to buy a new Toyota. Aren't you afraid that you're giving up that young first buyer that was looking for that $16,000 car?
Yes, we are concerned with that, which is why we're also now redirecting them either towards an LA Corolla or the certified used market. But knowing where that volume is, right, it really was 10,000 units for the past month. So volume wise, not significant, but definitely want to try to retain those buyers within the Toyota family. I would also follow that up to with the shift that we've talked to with buyers wanting SUVs, particularly small SUVs. You know, even that Yaris sedan market is going down. So I think future products that Toyota might be coming out with could help that first-time buyer out too.
There will be something smaller than Toyota CHR in the crossover space?
No comment.
We got a lot of insight on all this sedan world that is not going away, and I really don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. And I still think that there will be a lot of electric cars that still have some type of sedan shape coming up. You know, I think people identify with that, you know, being an automobile. So it's going to take another generation or two before we completely change our minds as to what a car is. And maybe another 3 generations that will be the crossover, what everybody thinks as an automobile. And
yeah,
then something
yeah, it's interesting. If you go through 2019 top 10 vehicles by volume, I think 4 are sedans. So obviously Camry and Corolla are both in there. And Altima, maybe? But there's a couple. But so, yeah, I mean, I think when I just me speaking my own personal opinion, there's obviously a ton of sedans, and sedan sales are definitely shifting towards SUV, CUV trucks, but there is still a certain segment of sedans or certain models that are still doing well, and I think will continue to do well. And you look at Camry and Corolla on our side, have been pretty steady with their sales over the last couple of years.
I think the day that we see a NASCAR car with a crossover shape, that's when we know we've reached that point.
Exactly.
How has coronavirus affected the operation and sales of the brand? And what is the rebound?
And we resumed operations and put in place a lot of the safety precautions, and making sure that, you know, our workers are safe and there's testing, et cetera. You know, Toyota's main pillar of operation is respect for people. So we want to make sure that the safety of our associates is first and foremost. But everybody's pulling together, and fortunately, corona infections have been minimal, and so we are, you know, close to back to top or complete operations. So I don't know the exact figures of where we were as of the past couple of weeks, but we are close to full capacity. So I don't know, Zach, do you have the exact ones? But
I don't know the exact numbers. I know, yeah, obviously we were with the plant closures for those few weeks. Obviously production got a little thin, but yeah, full capacity, or really close to full capacity, just like Nathan said, and we're starting to see dealer lots start to fill up again.
Well, definitely it has not been an easy time for any car manufacturer or any other industry. I mean, it's just, and I think the car industry will move on, and it will, you know, get back to where it needs to be. Unfortunately, some industries are very, you know, greatly affected, and I just worry about those that part of the economy. But you know, as they say, the show must go on in one way or another, and we thank you very much for participating in this type of platform that at least we can exchange some thoughts and get some more information to create content. I don't necessarily mean to wrap it up, but I wanted to know if we have some last questions from anyone out there. Let's take advantage that our friends at Toyota are taking the time to be available and help us out with content creation. So if you have any questions, just please do so. And also remember just to follow up through email, and I'm sure that Zach and Christina and everyone at Toyota will be happy to answer your questions.
Hi, y'all. Yeah, the question's from me in the chat. This is Liza. Thank you, Toyota, Team Toyota. You know how much I love you all, so thank you so much for being here. And my question was with regards to the RAV4 Hybrid, which I had the honor of driving around this week, and my audience has been obsessed with it, as have I. So I'm just curious to know, do you all have data into how well that's doing right now? Especially in comparison, let's say, with your Prius, but for someone looking for something that's sportier, I really feel like the RAV4 Hybrid is just in a very unique spot, and I just would love to amplify that and would love to know if you have any data.
Yeah, so it's doing incredibly well. I see Anthony's on there. He can probably talk to it. So actually June 2020, 2 months ago, was the first month we've ever had where one of our hybrid grades outsold our gas grade. And that was with RAV4. Our RAV4 Hybrid outsold the RAV4 gas in June for the first time ever. So to say it's doing well would probably be an understatement. We can't keep them on the lots anywhere in the country. If you look, I have data in front of me, just if we're looking at June sales, I can pull up July as well, but RAV4 Hybrid almost doubled its sales from June 2020 or June 2019 to June 2020. And that's obviously in this current pandemic and with overall sales down, but it still seems to do really, really well. And it's one of our, obviously our best seller. Anthony, anything to add on to that?
It also did well even before the pandemic as well. Like it's been doing about, as I look, 20 to 30% of our total RAV4 mix, which is quite amazing, and just continues to do better. So really happy with how RAV4 Hybrid is doing.
Yeah, I think that kind of the big, and going back to when this current generation launched in fall 2018, having the hybrid version, which also focuses on performance, it kind of broke the stigma of that a hybrid's slow. It has obviously great performance, great drive, great ride handling, but also kind of broke the stigma that a hybrid has to be so much more expensive. I believe when we launched, the Delta was $800 difference between the same grades of a gas and a hybrid. And I don't think it's changed that much since. So doing really, really well.
RAV4 Prime plug-in hybrid has, caused quite a storm of interest. Any chance we'll be seeing that powertrain? I know the batteries are limited at the beginning, but will we eventually see a Toyota sedan with a plug-in hybrid powertrain?
We're excited about RAV4 Prime as well. It is just an amazing vehicle. Second fastest vehicle that we have. So it is a remarkable piece of technology. And yeah, we are hoping, as Zach said, and as if you read the electrification strategy global news release that I posted on the chat there, you will see that Toyota plans to have a electrified variant of every model line. So you can imagine, we're not saying anything specifically, but you can imagine that plug-in will be in a powertrain that's proliferates in the model lineup.
I understand we're ready for the test drives for the Toyota Joby Aviation projects, and those would be at the Santa Monica Airport. So I'll join in that test drive first, and until then.
You joke, but that was Nathan's project.
Well, that's,
yeah. Yeah, can't wait to talk about that one too. That one's.
There's a lot of things in the pipeline for Toyota.
Absolutely.
A company that is thinking way ahead, and as we mentioned yesterday about test driving the truck in the moon, so that will come soon.
Yeah. So, but I just kind of reiterate, we want to thank you for taking the time for talking to us. It's great to see your faces. I mean, we miss seeing you guys in person, but we took notes. I took notes, and all the questions that we weren't able to answer, I'll follow up. I'll send the safety video around, and if there are any questions you have, email any time of the day. We'll get back to you quickly and with anything you may have.
Great. So again, I want to thank you all, and I want to thank you all for participating. You know, Hector, Juan, Jaime, Joaquin, Roger, Liza, and Maria Ravani couldn't come on board. I don't know what happened with Aaron. So was trying to log in and he couldn't. So he'll watch the video.
It's excellent. Thank you, Zach.
All right.
No, thank you all.
We'll see you all pretty
all right.
soon.
Enjoy your evening. Thank you all.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks all.